Howdy, my name is Roger. I love my country, my truck, and Power Platform best practices. If you're serious about becoming a Power Platform solutions architect, join the Architects Accelerator. Now enough of my fake Southern accent, and let's hear from an actual participant of the program, Anna Black.
Hi, I'm Anna Black. I'm the creator of Power Platform Cookbook. I joined the Architects Accelerator because I saw a post from Magdalena and she was so positive and inspired me to join and see what it's all about. Before joining the accelerator, I was avoiding AI. And then when I saw how to apply AI and practice like soft skills, and it just like it really opened my mind to try different things for myself with different tools and everything. It really helps you to evaluate what you know and what you don't know, because when you are doing your job for like so many years, you might be missing a trick and like a different approach. So it really helped me to look at the problems from a different angle. And it was really great to meet with people and be like a part of another community and exchange ideas and so on. So yeah, lots of benefits that did change my life. So thank you.
The link is in the show notes, or go to untethered365.com to learn more.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sprint Zero podcast. My name is John Russell, and I'm here with my co-partner, Crab in Crime, Mike Gowland. Hello Mike, how are you?
I am very well, John. How are you today?
I am very good, thank you very much. Yeah, not too bad. Today we are joined by an undisputed legend of the Dynamics and Power Platform community, Neil Benson. Neil runs the Customary Academy training website where he talks about all things agile. Neil is a MVP, a certified Scrum Master, and with Scrum.org and Scrum Alliance, and he publishes a blog, podcast, online training courses on using Scrum to implement Dynamics 365. Thanks for taking the time to come to the podcast, Neil. How are you doing? You okay?
I am amazing. John, Mike, it's so good to spend some time with you. We've rescheduled this thing once or twice, so it's just amazing to be here, looking at you, talking to you. Thank you very much for inviting me. I can't wait.
And it's nice to hear you in person, because I've heard your podcast, quite a lot of your podcast, because I'm quite a big fan of Agile and Scrum. So yeah, sure. I've listened to a lot of your course stuff, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming.
I actually listened to your podcast this morning and completely forgot we were recording this morning as well. So I've already listened to you today, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but my son wasn't listening to it as punishment. When I take him to the grandparents, he has to listen to the Imperial March. But what he did this morning was he ran out the front door and into the road. So he didn't get his music on the way to the grandparents. So treat to myself was that I got to listen to a podcast for once, and I chose Keith Atherton's episode.
Keith, I was just looking at Keith. He's a recent joiner at ANS Group, which I only just realised. So yeah, shout out to Keith.
Yeah.
So Neil, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, I think I've admitted this in public before. I'm not too sure. Don't come at me with pitchforks if this is your first time hearing it. But I started my career as an IT contractor. Before that, I had done a degree in biochemistry. We'll maybe come back to that. But I applied for lots and lots of graduate jobs. I went to University of Edinburgh, and I was sitting in a little one-bedroom apartment in Edinburgh. This big chart on the wall of all these graduate jobs I'd applied for, and all the rejection letters coming in one after the other. This is in 1996, a little while ago. I just ended up taking a kind of a sales role as a IT contract recruiter, and I was a resourcer. So my job was to speak to the candidates, update Cardbox, which was a DOS-based CRM system. And I would put little tags in there like COBOL or DB2 or Visual Basic or just VB6 or something like that, VB4 probably back then. And I'd have hundreds of conversations with candidates all day long. And that was my first job in sales, my first exposure to CRM. I hated the CRM. When that company got acquired, I complained about the new CRM so much that they sent me around all the offices in the UK to figure out all the different processes, all the different offices used. And I came back and I was like, I love this. What is this called? I'm like, well, that's a business analyst. I'm like, I want to do more business analysis. How do I do that? So I still had a couple of sales jobs. I ended up in a management consulting team at the Royal Bank of Scotland, where I met my wife and was selling their management consultancy. I wanted to implement a new CRM, and I looked at Onyx and Siebel and ended up they wound up that division, and I ended up taking a job with an Onyx CRM consultancy. Ended up in sales, then pre-sales, and then my career just become more technical from there. And I finished up wanting to. I did a CRM project, an Onyx CRM project for Rackspace, big server hosting company. And I love this idea of software as a service. It was we called it application service providers back then, dedicated server or shared servers, and these kinds of things. And I love this idea of winning your customers' loyalty every month and selling a software subscription. So I contacted Sage CRM, Salesforce, and Microsoft and said, I want to host your software. How do I do that? And Sage said, you just buy it. You buy the licenses from us and see if you can get somebody to rent them from you. Oh, that sounds a bit risky. That's a lot of money up front for me. Salesforce said, no, you can't host it. We host it. You could become a consulting partner. And Microsoft said, heck yeah, we've got this thing called Service Provider Licensing Agreement, SPLA. And you can just run the software on your servers, rent it out to whoever signs up, and at the end of the month, you pay us. It's like, let's go. So I became one of the UK's first hosted CRM partners back in 1996.
Nice.
No,
how was it back then?
So it wasn't 96, it was about 2006. Sorry, I get my dates wrong. Just after we launched, a friend of mine from Sage sent me a press release, Microsoft about to launch Dynamics CRM Live. And I was like, oh my Lord, my business is toast. And it actually took Microsoft about 5 years to go through that journey, launch that product in the UK. So I had basically 5 years of the market to myself. And we did pretty well. We had a couple of thousand users, a couple of hundred customers. It never really quite got to the scale and profitability that it needed to. And then around 2008, 2009, things were looking pretty dicey for the economy. And, we had a lot more capacity than we had users, and things were not going so swimmingly. And not many Microsoft partners had enough capital in reserve to buy us, but we found Genesis Communications. So Dan Barber was one of my team at Increase CRM, at NES Group. The sales director at Genesis Telecommunications. There's a guy called Adam Spur. And again, he's another guy at ANS. I don't know. I'm tripping over people at ANS today. It's amazing. So yeah, that was the story of how I got started with Microsoft way back in.
Nice. Wow. You said I read on your kind of page on the MVP website that, and it kind of works well with the timeline that you've just gone through, that back in 2008 you got a 600-page requirement specification document rejected by a client. Now it sounds like that's a bit of a catalyst for you to kind of springboard into agile. Am I right? Like what happened there?
Yeah, so Dan Barber and Dan wrote most of it. We were
Dan's under the bus straight away.
Yeah, it was an awesome requirement specification, by the way. So we were invited by a company called Premier Medical Group. They had about 300 users, mostly in a contact center up in the Midlands, and they wrote medical legal reports. So if you were injured in a car accident and your lawyer needed to prepare a medical report for an insurance claim, these guys had doctors and clinics and all these reports. So they were trying to get through as many of these reports as possible, lower the cost of writing the report, lower the cost of a claim, so the insurance industry could lower the cost of premiums and payouts. And they needed a new system. And so they came to us with like a dozen requirements. So we spent a few weeks going around their office, talking to lots of their team members, their managers, the medical legal teams, the lawyers, the doctors. We wrote all these requirements. We got screenshots and tables of custom entities and all the columns and fields and screenshots of prototypes and everything. And Debbie, who's the chief operations officer, turned around and said, I don't know if this thing is complete. It's full of jargon. I don't know what an entity is. I don't know what a call out is or a plugin is. And, I'm not satisfied it's going to work for us. And your timeline here in the Gantt chart shows me it's going to be about 18 months before we get to test it. I can't wait that long. That's no good. And I said, hold on, Debbie, I'll be right back. I've got a magazine around here about Scrum. Where's that magazine? And I pitched Debbie the idea of using an agile approach, breaking down the requirements into small increments and delivering software every couple of weeks. Her team being a lot more involved in the software development, so she would be quite hands-on, specifying the requirements, seeing the software, giving feedback on it. She loved that idea. So We pitched it to her board of directors. I made one stupid mistake in that pitch, but other than that, it was awesome. They loved it. So
Nice.
That was my first transition to Scrum.
Nice.
So, your podcast is excellent. Just to get that out there. I've listened to quite a few of them. I think my favourite has been the Estimating Business Apps collection that you did. What have you got planned for the Amazing Apps podcast? Is there anything you wish to share with us?
So I'll have to be honest, it's been slowed down quite a bit. I have one podcast in the can ready to edit. I made a decision a few months ago, and you might appreciate this, Mike. I know you've been on a journey recently with regards to your own health. In October last year, I decided to try and get fit, get active, change my diet, and I started going to the gym a few times a week, and that's just meant something had to give. At the same time, Customer is going okay. We've got the training courses all there. That's been relegated to a side hustle because I'm investing so much time in my new business, Superware. We've got 20 team members, got 6 co-founders, and I owe it to them to put in a full day's work over there too. So the podcast has taken a backseat slightly. We've got 150 something episodes. I've got a new series coming out, taking a book called Mastering Scrum, and I'm going to break that down chapter by chapter. It's really to help me with my level 3 Scrum Master certification exam. So kind of learning in public, if you like. But yeah, I've met some amazing guests with that. We've had the Estimating Business Apps series, which actually spun out into a separate podcast feed. And that's just an audio version of my online course that's available as well, Estimating Business Apps course. And yeah, I'll have a lot of fun with the podcast. There's a video channel to go with it as well on YouTube. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. I hope to keep it going, but I have to try a bit harder.
Yeah, that Estimating Business Apps collection is really good. I think anyone who really needs to get into the depths of trying to work out how to estimate things and, story points and planning poker, all of that. It was a real light bulb moment for me when I listened to that, because you kind of connected the dots. I kind of knew it theory wise, and I'd kind of applied it in places, but I'd never really connected it all together until I'd listened to that podcast.
Yeah, great.
And there was one specific one where you talk about, high return on value and how the story points are calculated. And that was like, the specific one was like a baseline user story, and it's 3 story points. And it was like, of course. And I think that should be mandatory training for anyone who's in consultancy in the business app space to listen to that, because it's very, very good. Yeah.
Well, story points are pretty divisive in the Agile community. I like them. I find them very useful. Half of the Agile community hates them and thinks they're, a spawn of the devil. And there's a time and place for them. I find them really helpful because a lot of Agile practitioners, if you're building the Spotify app for Spotify, you're not selling projects. Your estimates aren't so critical. If you're a Microsoft partner, on the other hand, and you're bidding for work, and you're bidding for a project that you've never done before, with a client you've never worked with a team that doesn't exist yet, then some kind of common estimating framework is really helpful as a Microsoft partner.
Yeah.
And I find it, we've refined it over many years, and it really works. And we've won tens of millions of dollars of business with it. My team estimates really quickly, reasonably accurately. Nothing's ever perfect, but it's worked so well for us. I just wanted to share it with everybody. I think it's, you can take from it what you will, adapt it to your own way of working. Lots of partners have done that. And hopefully lots of people find it useful. Yeah,
it's really good. So your brand Customary, it's really good, and I see it everywhere. What's your tips on building a brand in this space?
So a few years ago, I launched Customary with a lot of Lego themed images. I built, in fact, I've still got a bit of a photo studio over here on the right hand side. So I've still got lots of Lego minifigs, and I tried to use those to illustrate Scrum, because the concepts in Scrum are pretty hard to illustrate. Right? Talking about sprints and sprint planning, but I managed to find a way to use Lego superheroes to represent the Scrum team and put them in situations that kind of represented some of the Scrum events, theory, and things like that. And that worked really well. I got lots of great comments. In fact, still today, when other people use Lego on LinkedIn, for example, somebody will send me a note going, "Oh, did you know Mike Garland's just put this post up on LinkedIn. He's using Lego. Well, I don't own Lego. I don't own the copyright, so he can do whatever he wants with a Lego figure on his LinkedIn. But over the last couple of years, I evolved that. I went to see a branding photographer called Louise Williams here in Brisbane, and we talked about my background as a scientist. I did this degree in biochemistry, and I still today have this natural curiosity. It's one of my core values. And we talked about experimentation. That's really at the heart of Scrum, right? You don't quite know what design is going to work. So you try something out, you get feedback on it, it works or it didn't. If it works, you double down on it, you do more of that. And that's how empirical processes like the Scrum framework work. And we pulled that apart a little bit more. And so I ended up getting this mad scientist costume, and she ended up putting on some special effects to make that blow up.
You got the green beaker as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So I got this luminescent. So actually, when in my last year, my degree in Edinburgh University, I took the luminescent gene out of jellyfish called Equoria victoria. The protein is called GFP1. Transferred that through bacteria into yeast, and managed to prove under an ultraviolet microscope that the yeast were expressing this gene in the nucleus of the cell. So we targeted the expression of the protein inside the nucleus of the of the yeast cell. Amazing stuff. Something to do with cancer research. I just wanted to make glow-in-the-dark beer. I thought that would be very exciting. And in fact, today you can buy homebrew beer kits with Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is baker's yeast, with the GFP1 protein inside, and you can make glow-in-the-dark beer. I never published a paper, but I invented that process. I was part of a team that invented that process in 1996. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
That's awesome.
In fact, I have another photo shoot with Louise tomorrow for our new company, Superware. And looking forward to see what she does with that one.
Nice. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Superware then?
Yeah. So I was working with a team at RACQ, so the Royal Automobile Club of Queensland. They're a big car club who do breakdown assistance. So if you join the club, you have a breakdown, they come and fix you. They also do home insurance and car insurance and banking and some other stuff. So got a couple of million members, really old CRM systems. I led a team of about 25 developers. It was a 3-year program with about 120 people in the entire program, millions of dollars, and had a lot of fun. Did some really good work. Contact center applications, membership applications, integrations into banking and so on. About 10 of us thought it'd be a good idea to keep working together. 6 of us were brave enough to form a new business. We called it Superware because we looked around and what other industries have got similar requirements? Well, there's only 6 car clubs in Australia, 1 in each state. In the UK, there's only 2, right? AA and RAC. Yeah, there's not many worldwide, so it's not a big industry. But in Australia, we have got this retirement system called superannuation. We've got these big financial services organizations called superannuation funds, and they have millions of members. They have complex membership relationships, and they have integrations into complex financial systems. They have contact centers and all this kind of stuff. So we built a industry-specific ISV app, CRM app for the superannuation sector. And so we called it Superware. So that's been in market now for a couple of years, and we've just released a complaints management application. We're about to release our 3rd application shortly, and it's going really well. We're doing good work and having a lot of fun.
Nice
work. Nice one.
But I've got to tell you, running an ISV business, man, completely different. Like, of all the years I've been a Microsoft systems integrator, I've worked for big partners, my own business, hosting partners, global audit consultancies. Being an ISV, it's a whole new kettle of fish. It's
in a good way, obviously.
Well, it's actually I'd say it's really challenging. It has got a big push on ISVs, particularly for Azure ISVs, business apps ISVs. Like, there's nobody running that program right now. It's been I couldn't tell you who runs the ISV program for business applications. There's a lot of gaps and holes and
oh wow,
things missing.
Okay.
Right.
Protecting intellectual property is still a big concern. Licensing models, things. We're slowly getting there. It's not a huge emphasis for the business applications team, I'm guessing. But,
do you have a lot of contact with Steve Morgie from the Rapid Start CRM?
Sure. Yeah. There's a number of wonderful MVPs and former MVPs who also run ISV businesses. Steve Mordew would be one, Guy and Pereira would be another. Folks like that who most of their business comes from selling software subscriptions to their ISV products.
Oh, that's cool.
Steve and I quite often cry into a beer when we meet up at.
I can't imagine Steve crying.
No, I can't imagine Steve
I might
crying.
need to get designer to whip up something. So, Neil, we have this section on the podcast called Uncomfortable Corner.
Uncomfortable corner.
It's what differentiates us as a podcast. When was the last time you felt uncomfortable in or out of work? And explain how you felt, how you managed to get through it, and what did you learn?
So I've listened to a number of the guests that come on to Sprint Zero, and it's probably no surprise and no shock to anybody that imposter syndrome is widespread in the IT industry.
Yeah.
I've never suffered from imposter syndrome. I was the kid in class who always put up their hand first, who always wanted to volunteer, who always wanted to, do the recital at the front of the class, stand up on stage and give the speech. I don't know what that is. It's the opposite of imposter syndrome. I don't know if there's a name for it. At Rackspace, they put everybody through this thing called Strengths Finder. You can buy it as a book. It's published by Gallup. You can read the book. You can discover your 5 core strengths. No way. Mike, you had that on your desk? How did you know I was going to say that?
Well, it's been there for 6 months. So what happened was I took part in Mark Smith's 90-day mentoring challenge. And
Yes,
he recommended that book and said, you have to buy it brand new because there's a special code in there to be able to unlock the quiz. Now, actually, I bought this £3 off a site called Vinted. And there's my unused code there because I still haven't got around to actually doing the exam.
John's got his as well. There you go. So I can't remember the name of the original guy who wrote it because this is Strengths Finder 2.0.
Don Clifton.
Don Clifton and Marcus Buckingham. So Marcus Buckingham's gone on to do great things. Don Clifton's never been heard of again. But he did write the second book. I can't remember all 5 of my strengths at Rackspace. One of them is about curiosity, and that's still a core value. One of them is called significance. One of my core strengths is significance, which is kind of the opposite of imposter syndrome, whatever, if there is an opposite. And Dominic Monkhouse, who was the managing director of Rackspace UK at the time, he's now a good friend and a business coach, a great podcaster as well. He said, the trouble with people who have significance as one of their top 5 strengths is they never suffer from imposter syndrome. They are in severe danger of suffering from asshole syndrome. Say that on Sprint Zero. Whoops.
Yeah, you can say fuck shit, whatever you want. It's fine.
You don't play this one in the car to your son.
I beat him out. Don't worry.
There's definitely a part of me which is the opposite of imposter syndrome. That is happy, feels comfortable speaking into a microphone, up on stage. And when lots of other nerds and geeks in our industry and our community, whom I love, express their imposter syndrome, I'm like, I just don't get it. Why would somebody be that shy? It's not something I've ever had. But one quality that I have, actually my wife has it as well, is that I hate confrontation. And so I will delay, defer, avoid having difficult conversations. My wife and I have rarely had an argument. We've been married for 20 years. We've been together for 25 years. We will sometimes go to bed and not talk to each other. But we've never had a full-on blow-up row. Very rarely, not that I can remember, because we just both don't like having difficult conversations. I've had to let go of a couple of team members, and that's just been excruciating for me and for them. It's awful.
I think that's tough for anyone, though, isn't it, to have those?
I hope so. I hope it is tough for the manager.
Yeah, I think if it's not tough, I think that's more of a worry.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this episode wasn't deferred because Neil doesn't like having difficult conversations with us.
But I had to have so as we're going through our growing pains at Superware, I've got 6 co-founders. It's a very unusual business structure. We're all equal shareholders or unit holders. It's structured as a unit trust. And although I do most of the day-to-day running of the business, they're all in the delivery team. We had to have a difficult conversation about roles, responsibilities, and compensation. And I had kind of put out a proposal many months ago. Nobody had given me any feedback on it. And it was I was getting quite angst about it. And we should move in that direction. Let's go. Why is nobody coming along? Why am I not getting feedback? Heck, I'm just going to railroad this thing through. And then I started to get pushback. And so I brought along our business coach into this founders meeting that we had. And Chris is our coach, started to explain my side of the argument. And there's a lot of pushback from my co-founders on him. Like, Chris, why do you always come in on these difficult conversations? Like, guys, I invited Chris because I hate having these difficult conversations, and I wanted Chris to have it with me. And he left the room. He kind of knew when his part was played. And I said, look, guys, I'm really feel awkward in these situations. This is a difficult conversation for me, and I've been putting it off for months. I've been feeling terrible, and I've been in a real slump. Imagining how you're going to react to it. I'm like, well, Neil, what we want is not different. We will have different roles and responsibilities. That's clear. We've all got different strengths and capabilities and experiences. But when it comes to compensation, we're all equal owners, and we want equal compensation. Sure, some people out in the market might have different market value, but inside Superware, it's important to us that all the co-owners all have equal compensation. Like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Because at that point, I was one of the lowest compensated.
Played!
Bonus!
So that was just a massive, massive weight off my shoulders. It had been weighing me down for months. And it had got me into a real slump. Actually, I don't really think of myself as... I think of myself as quite mentally resilient, but this thing had been weighing on me. Yeah. And man, the last couple of weeks, I felt brilliant. Yeah, difficult, awful situation to find myself in. And even somebody who considers themselves strong, confident, it really got me down and reminded me that anybody can suffer from episodes that can really drag down their behavior, their performance, their attitude. You never know what's going on. It could be something as silly as me not understanding my co-founder's desire for equal compensation, or something really serious mentally or physically.
And in hindsight, would you have just addressed that sooner if you'd had that time again, or how would it played out any differently?
If my character was different, my character, I'm 50 in January. My character may not change that much. However, I need to recognize that is not a great behavior in a lot of times. A lot of times it's fine. I can sleep on a difficult decision, and that's a good idea sometimes. But if I keep deferring difficult decisions indefinitely, that's obviously not a great thing. So I need to recognize that I'm deferring a difficult decision because there's an awkward conversation at the other end of it, and find a way to have that conversation. So that's a skill I need to learn. I don't think it's a characteristic I'm ever going to overcome.
No.
Yeah.
But I can recognize it, grab it, and treat it in the same way that somebody with imposter syndrome could take an improv class or do some things to help them not get over imposter syndrome, but manage it so they can make a presentation one day.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned the Clifton Strengths book as well, and everything around that, because part of that is actually you play to your strengths and not your weaknesses, and
that's right.
And that allows you to go further. So if you can surround yourself with a team who can fill in the gaps where you have weaknesses, then actually as a team you should technically be unstoppable. Yeah. So actually, deferring difficult conversations to somebody else who can probably have that conversation much better than you that's not a bad thing. But I guess the question is there anyone else to fill that gap?
There's a gap in our business at the moment. Probably maybe a COO or a consulting manager who can do all the check-ins with the team. I'm not great at doing performance reviews and setting responsibilities and checking in on people and measuring the performance and having those weekly check-ins. Others will need to do that as our business grows. But I recognize that, and I know I can recruit to fill that gap if one of my co-founders doesn't want to do that. So you can have weaknesses. Weaknesses are good if you can recognize them, figure out a way to fill them, avoid them. The people who don't know their weaknesses are much worse off than I am, I think. I'm sure there's a couple of weaknesses I don't know about yet.
Nice.
Cool. Right, well, I think that's all we've got time for this week. Neil, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for sharing your story with us. You can find Neil on LinkedIn and customery.com, but you can also find him on the Amazing Apps podcast on most, I think, all major podcast providers.
I hope so.
Yeah. I hope so, yeah. I never sleep at night wondering whether I've dropped off Deezer or not. Links to resources mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes. Music today was provided by Ken Like Fit. You can find his music on Spotify, the link to which you can find in this episode's show notes. You can also find this podcast and Neil's podcast on Spotify. Additional music used in this episode, if there was any, is also credited there. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss the next episode. We would also really appreciate it if you gave us a follow on LinkedIn. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please give us a review on your chosen podcast platform. Thank you. This has been Sprint Zero, and we've been John Russell. Say goodbye, Johnny.
See you later. Cheers.
Neil Benson, say goodbye, Neil.
G'day, Mike. See you later.
And I've been Mike Gowland, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Love you guys.
Wow!
Yeah! You've been waiting to do that. Amazing. That's my round of applause. Well done. Well done. That's the way to get.
I wasn't
right
sure
there.
if you
What
were
an
going to
ending.
stop recording before I managed to get it in there. I've been waiting for
Oh, amazing. Love you too, Neil. That's super.
Yeah, love you, Neil.
I love you, Mark, as well.
Oh, yeah, I love you, John.
I'm Sean. I run the Architects Accelerator. It's an 8-week training program to help you become a solutions architect. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how awesome it is. We're just going to hear from previous participants.
My name's Mike Colling.
My name is Sander.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Hi, I'm Luke.
Hi, I'm Callum. I work as a senior functional consultant.
I signed up for this because it sounded something that I hadn't seen anywhere else.
And that's what I liked about this course, is that we were focusing about taking the right requirement and proposing to the customer the right solution.
It's showing how to use the whole platform and how to build better solutions that could last a long time.
I don't have a background in software, and given that it's changing so fast every single day, I needed a guided way of learning. If the solution architect is the direction I want to go, I have taken something from every day of those classes and have applied them to my work.
Found it really useful and really enjoyed it.
Use promo code SPRINT0 to get $50 off.